everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Kinji Fukasaku deep dive. We're at 1970 now, and this film is If You Were Young, Rage. This is the latest film, a part of the Kinji Fukasaku chronological order that I'm watching, to the access to the films I have available to me on DVD, streaming, Blu-ray, all that stuff, all leading up to the Battle of Our Honor collection, which just before that I will take a small break and come back to that fresh and diving into that quite extensive series of films, which will be very interesting to see how they stack up compared to all the ones I've watched beforehand. And it's interesting to see more of Kinji Fukasaku's kind of basically war movies and his Yakuza-based films and his dramas, and just kind of seeing different aspects of this kind of really legendary director that I'm really getting a big appreciation for, and within the Japanese culture as well, seeing more of Japanese-based movies, which I definitely want to do for this year for sure. And this one's part of the Titan DVD set that I did have, which I now have sold. I watched all three of those films. They will probably get a release on Blu-ray down the line by Radiance, but I don't particularly want to own any of them on DVD. So this film is, of course, If You Were Young, Rage. This is actually one of my favorites of the director so far from Kinji Fukasaku. It's so different. So again, completely left field compared to what he usually does. This film basically follows 5 individuals, very youthful, within kind of post-World War II Japan. Basically, at the start of the film, they are known as the kind of the golden eggs. They have done well in education. They've been propped up by the kind of the older generation to do well, and they've got into really kind of, you know, horrible jobs, kind of mining jobs, you know, slave labor essentially, borderline slave labor, really kind of physical labor, manual kind of based jobs that are horrible, underpaid, and down to kind of the social kind of, you know, climate at that time and the kind of the economical kind of growth. A lot of these kind of factories and places are basically closed down, underpaid, underprivileged, and essentially these characters, these youthful kind of next generation, have had enough. They're not happy, and they have a right to be angry, as the film implies in Cinema's Rage. And they basically go, you know what, screw it. We're going to keep on these jobs for the time being. We're going to put all of our money together to buy a truck. And they call this truck the Independence. And there are very personal touches to this truck as the film goes along. And essentially this group of people that have various different backgrounds, and it's very creatively how it kind of presents this in terms of, you know, introducing each one. It plays with kind of, you know, narrative in terms of time. You know, at the start of the film, it's placed within the modern kind of after the point where you focus on these 2 main individuals, these 2 kind of brothers, these 2 best friends, and they're talking about the kind of what happened to the others as they went along. And you do flashbacks, and it's very creative in how it's kind of presented within the kind of still shots and kind of, you know, flashbacks and things like that. And you find out all the characters as the film goes along, which is quite cool. And some were kind of fishermen's kind of sons, and some were, you know, wants to be a boxer, and various kind of aspirations and kind of driving forces. And they've all kind of eventually kind of let it all go to basically kind of say, we're going to go independently in a business of our own, and we're going to be our own bosses essentially. We're tired of all these other jobs messing us around and, you know, working for someone else. We're just going to be our own boss, and we can take the deliveries. And this idea of buying a truck, I suppose, within 70s Japan was a kind of high demand. You know, if you've got your own truck, if you've got your own means of kind of transportation, you can do these deliveries and you can make some big money. And that's what it is. The start of the film is showing how much money these 2 individuals are making by doing these deliveries they're doing, which is great. And, you know, they've got their own little pad, and you find out what happened to the other friends as the film goes along. And one of them died down to a tragic accident for no fault of his own. One ended up going in prison. One ended up sleeping with someone in a kind of a nightclub, and then obviously has to kind of separate himself from that group to basically look after his kid. And it's interesting kind of life stuff, which I quite like. And they've all got their own kind of baggage within their own background, and we find out more about that through kind of, you know, as the flashback goes along, which I quite appreciate. And they've all got some scars, and they've all got some trauma, but it's a very positive movie, surprisingly. It does get a bit bittersweet towards the end, as to be expected, but I was surprised how, again, full of energy this film has, so positive, it's so happy. You want these characters to succeed, you want these characters to do well, and they are happy that the plan is going forward. You know, there's no Yakuza involved in this film, I know, surprisingly, and they just want to make an honest living. They want to be their own person, and they are even to the point where they're helping the sister and the mother of their best friend who went to prison, and basically taking them in, and, you know, they are doing their duties as well by kind of, you know, cleaning up the house and making food and looking after them essentially. So, and they're taking them under their wing. They say, hey, come and live with us, you know, and there's a bit of a connection happening there, which I quite appreciate, which is really cool. And it's just got a really kind of nice kind of positive energy feel throughout the whole film, and it's a very enjoyable film from start to finish. It does get very intense. There is some escalation that does happen within the film, as to be expected. The middle and the third act of the film is just as strong as the first act, so it's very consistent throughout the entire thing, compared to the other two movies on that set, where the first act was the strongest portion and it kind of waves a little bit towards as the film goes along. This is consistently interesting, well produced, well performed, and has a point and a message which I actually do really appreciate. And I think the ending to the film is great as well. It's very bittersweet, but it's very appropriate to those characters and the situation they're in as the film goes along. So definitely recommend this film for sure. I definitely would consider picking this one up, maybe if it got a HD Blu-ray release from Radiance or something. I definitely think this one definitely deserves some attention. I can see this being more part of a Vinegar Syndrome, part of a double pack edition. I don't know if this one would sell by itself, if I'm being completely honest. I can see more of this part of a collection of films more than an individual release, but if it does eventually come out on Blu-ray, I definitely will be one to keep an eye out for sure. But just go with the right expectations. This is a youthful kind of, energy-filled drama with some escalation that does happen within the kind of the second degree into the third act, and some misunderstandings that do happen, but it's a very collection of really nice individuals, very interesting kind of characters, great performances, really well, creatively shot and put together, and very inspiring, and speaks to me in some levels in terms of my inner desire to kind of go screw the job, screw everything, and be independent myself. So it's kind of speaking on different levels to me, which is maybe why I enjoyed it more than most, I would say. Definitely worth checking out if you can find it. If you were a young rage, definitely worth checking out for sure, for part of the Kinji Fukasaku lineup. So what are your thoughts and opinions on this film? Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.